The network should be worth more than it is today. It just should. That's my very deep belief. Let's get ETH to $1 trillion. It should be $1 trillion asset class. Should ETH be worth more than NVIDIA? Absolutely. Yes, obviously it should, right? Should ETH be worth more than gold? There's a world where you would easily say, yes, like ETH should be worth more than that, right? And the funny thing is, when you sidestep what's the price of ETH? The price of ETH needs to go up, right? And talk about the market cap, it makes it much more compelling from a psychological standpoint for people to talk about it. It's like, let's get ETH to $1 trillion. That would be a huge line that we could all go, okay, yeah, we're going to get behind that.
Welcome to the Edge Podcast. I'm DeFi Dad here with Nomadic from 4RC. Today's show spotlights Synthetix and Infinex founder Kain Warwick. In this episode, we lead off with a more philosophical discussion as long-term ETH holders and builders about the negative sentiment around Ethereum and ETH the asset, what can be fixed, and later how Infinex is still building towards an on-chain maximalist future, one that originally brought all of us together within Ethereum and DeFi. But before we do, just a quick word from our sponsors who make the Edge podcast possible. Hey folks, I wanted to tell you a bit about our sponsor, PYTH Oracles, your go-to source for smarter data to power smarter contracts. PYTH delivers real-time market data for crypto, equities, FX, and commodities to over 80 blockchains. With 120 plus major market participants like Jane Street, Binance, and CBOE, PYTH ensures secure, low-latency feeds trusted by 430 DeFi apps. You can learn more about PYTH by going to pyth.network, and thanks to the PYTH community for supporting us here at the Edge Podcast and Edge newsletter. Overwhelmed trying to manage your crypto and DeFi investments? Meet iYIELD, a free financial planning tool for crypto natives and yield farmers. iYIELD's dashboard compares returns from your DeFi positions side by side, providing clarity to help you make better decisions. iYIELD supports a growing list of over 16,000 tokens and 40 of the top DeFi and staking protocols across 17 blockchains, including Ethereum L2s. The best part is that iYIELD is 100% free, anonymous, and there are no ads. Check out iYIELD.com today to take control of your financial future. Hey folks, I want to tell you a bit about our sponsor, HOURGLASS, the protocol unlocking liquidity for time-bound tokens. With HOURGLASS Boost, you can time boost your assets and earn time-bound tokens that maximize your yield. Alternatively, HOURGLASS also enables leveraged airdrop farming, where you can get over 150x leverage and 10% more points than anywhere else in DeFi. Plus, thanks to their slippage-free market design, you can secure bigger airdrops at better prices. To learn more about HOURGLASS, go to hourglass.com. Launching your blockchain in months? That's so 2020. Launch your network in minutes with TANSSI infrastructure. Restaked security through SYMBIOTIC, plus full customization just a few clicks away. It's 2025. Build smarter, scale faster. Visit tansi.network to get started. Meet Definitive, the most advanced on-chain trading platform across every chain. Built by Coinbase alumni, Definitive's institutional-grade features lets anyone trade like a pro, featuring advanced order types like limit, twop, and stop loss, gasless trading, one-time approvals, and soon cross-chain swaps for multi-chain EVM and Solana. Definitive routes your orders through every liquidity pool to get you the best price on every trade. The alpha is on-chain. Trade it instantly on Definitive. For Edge Podcast listeners, enjoy zero trading fees on your first $50,000 in volume at defidad.definitive.fi.
Bitcoin Layer 2s are everywhere, but Goat Network is different. We're the first to use decentralized sequencers, letting both Bitcoin and Dogecoin secure our network while earning native yield. No nonsense, just your assets working smarter. Our early supporters got it, with over 8 million committed in December alone and already earning returns. Next up, mainnet launch in Q1 of 2025. Goat Network, where Bitcoin scaling meets real yield. Visit goat.network, get involved, and start earning sustainable yield.
All right, let's introduce Kain Warwick, the founder of Synthetix and Infinex. Kain, welcome back to the Edge Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So today we're going to talk this first half of the conversation about the state of Ethereum, what's wrong, why sentiment's been in the gutter lately, and then we'll lead into what's still missing in DeFi. And I think that leads us into the opportunity for what Infinex is building, how it's meeting users where they are, how it is looking to bring more folks on chain, but with a wrapper that feels more like the experience we've had on a centralized exchange. So why don't we just kick off with, Kain, as someone with such deep roots in Ethereum, I want to hear, what do you think is wrong with Ethereum and ETH, the asset? Every day we wake up, there's all this hate for Ethereum, on the crypto Twitter timeline. It feels like there's ridicule, there's disgust, there's anger. And at this point, I feel like the market is clearly pricing in this sentiment. Just a few days ago, we had ETH experience a crash of almost 30% in a single day after underperforming Bitcoin for, the last year or so. So yeah, just in a nutshell, how would you summarize what's wrong with Ethereum?
We have a big problem in ETH. One of the biggest problems, I think, is that if you are new to the space, it is not clear at all how you align yourself financially with Ethereum in the way that it was in 2017 to 2021, right? You're using Arbitrum. You're on the Arbitrum chain. You don't understand mainnet. You don't need ETH for gas. You're not on mainnet, right? So you're on Arbitrum, and I'm like, okay, well, if I'm on Arbitrum, do I buy ETH? I've got to have some ETH, right? I have to have some, but not much. You can have you don't need 50 ETH like we used to need for gas, right? You can have 0.005 ETH and you're good for months, right? And then it's well, do I buy more ETH or do I buy ARB? Do I buy these tokens? And we saw this a little bit through 2020 with DeFi Summer, where people were YOLOing into DeFi tokens rather than ETH, but to a very different extent in my mind, right? There was I want to rotate some of my ETH profits into, it was ETH led, then rotate out into DeFi, et cetera, and it kind of all went up together. I think we're seeing a world now for a whole bunch of structural reasons and psychological reasons where it's not clear to a new entrant. What if you use Base, right? What if you're mainly on Base? You buy AIRDROP. I'm not even fucking kidding. You literally buy AIRDROP, right? Everyone on Base is telling you buy AIRDROP. AIRDROP's telling you to buy AIRDROP. AIRDROP's this is, the most egalitarian thing that we've ever seen. And there's all of these memes about this. And it's okay, well, no one's telling you to buy ETH. They say buy Arrow, right? And that's a weird situation to be in that did not exist. There was no one who was buy lend in 2019. No one was buy lend first, then get some ETH, right? No, it was you buy ETH. ETH is the thing that's making lend work. Go and buy some ETH, and then if you're really excited about lend, then go buy some lend or SNX or Curve or Uni or whatever the token was. But it was the message was clear. Go and buy ETH if you like this ecosystem. And that is very much the case today for Solana. No one is confused in the Solana ecosystem what they should buy, right? Solana has Sol as the unit of account and the medium of exchange for all on-chain transactions, right? Of course there's stables there, and it was kind of funny that Trump, the majority was against USDC, right? The majority of the liquidity initially was against USDC, because you can tell they're not in the trenches, right? If they were Solana trenches, right, they would have put Sol in as the LP, right? It would have soaked up, 100 mil or something like that of Sol in the LP. So I just think that there are some structural issues here that are maybe, I don't want to say not being addressed, but maybe being ignored. And the reason why they're being ignored is because as soon as you pay attention to them and you say, well, this is a thing that we need to fix or think about, this is a genuine problem that we need to resolve, now you're just a shitcoin scammer. In the minds of some of the people, I think, in the EF, right? So it's we have to stay so far away from this line of why should people buy ETH? The price of ETH is it's directly connected to the security of the chain, first of all. The price of ETH goes back to $5, we're fucked, right? So we need the price of ETH to be high to secure the chain. That's a critical thing, right? We need people to want to buy ETH so that they stake and validate the chain. That's another critical aspect. And we need all of the things, for good or ill, psychologically. When the number goes up, people go, the narrative is working. The things that this chain is doing and cares about are important, and they're working because the world is driven by markets and the world is driven by price. And if the price of a thing goes up, then people will say, well, obviously it's working. It has to be working. More people want it. If there's more demand for it, then the things that it cares about are working, right? And I think that this is a thing that has just been a little bit lost in the mix, right? And so one of the things that I think, I don't think it's actually, look, I've had a lot of criticism about the EF and leadership in the EF, and probably I'm somewhat canceled, I would say, in some circles within the EF, right? But I'm okay with that. I think it's okay to criticize leaders. Like it should be okay to criticize leaders. There was I think something that Vitalik said about bullying or whatever. If someone is in a leadership position, they absolutely must be able to take criticism. They must. You can't aspire to be a leader and be in a leadership position. It is par for the course. You're going to have criticism. People will criticize your actions. And as a leader, you need to step up and defend your actions. And I don't think we've seen that. So to me, that's a huge, huge red flag, right? We shouldn't need Vitalik to be stepping up and defending. Now, there's an argument, well, Vitalik appointed that person effectively, right? Which, by the way, I didn't even know. I didn't know that Vitalik just, YOLO got to appoint everyone in the EF, that he's the only director, whatever, right? So that was news to me. Okay, cool. I'm here for it, though. Make Vitalik the benevolent dictator. That's fine, right? But I feel like there was a little bit of an element of Vitalik had appointed someone, had much more insight into what that person was doing, felt like I was doing a very good job, right, in whatever metrics Vitalik was tracking, right? And then everyone was criticizing Aya, or is criticizing Aya, and Vitalik was like, well, you can't criticize her. You're bullying her. And look, I mean, it's like crypto Twitter. Every single one of us has cracked reply guys saying the most insane shit, right? Like, that's just life. Like, if you're not willing to deal with that, then also, again, like, you shouldn't be in crypto at all if you're not willing to deal with the reply guys, right? But the thing is, I don't even know if Aya is willing to deal with this stuff, because she hasn't really said anything herself. And that, to me, is a bit problematic, right? So if it's like, if Aya's not willing to stand up and say, actually, you guys are all wrong, right? Here's all the stuff that I've done. And Vitalik needs to step up and say, well, no, this is my appointment, and, it was a good choice, and I'm very happy with how it's going. Maybe Vitalik should just be the head of the EF. Like, maybe that's just that would stop, like, it would stop a lot of this, right? Like, if Aya were the, I don't know, COO of the EF, right? And Vitalik were the CEO of the EF. Well, then it's like, yeah, okay, point at Vitalik and be like, Vitalik, you're doing a bad job. And he's at least on Twitter being like, fuck you, right? I'm not doing a bad job. Here's what I care about. And, get out of my ecosystem, basically, which I'm here for that as well, right? Like, if I'm like, Vitalik, you need to, do X, Y, and Z, and Vitalik's like, no, I don't, fuck off. Okay, cool. Like, at least we're having a conversation now, right? Like, at least there's a discussion there. So the thing that for me is most interesting is people talk about this idea of Ethereum needs to market more, and then there's a response from some parts of the ecosystem that are like, by marketing you're saying pump my bags, and it's like, we're not really saying that. Like, that's not. We're saying that you need to communicate. Marketing is about communicating the value of a thing to people. Now, one way to do that is through EIPs and through, technical documentation. The other way is like, put some ads out and say Ethereum is good and here's why it's good, right? Like, you can do both, and doing one does not undermine the other.
A few points you made. One of the issues for me, as someone who's been in Ethereum for, I think, close to 8 years now, not just like holding ETH, but participating actively in lots of protocols, investing early stage as an angel. I am just tired of the fact that there is a lack of like a unifying vision for the community. It's not from Vitalik. It's more, why do we have so many community members fighting over like, when number goes up, we say, well, did we really like deserve this? And number go up really isn't like the right metric. But then when shit falls apart, clearly, like when numbers down, you can feel the heaviness within the community. So it is a number that matters. Whereas I do envy that unifying, motivating sort of force within Solana. It feels like folks there are just not afraid to say, yeah, like we want the market cap of Sol to grow. Sol is a store of value. And there just isn't any sort of like counterparty to that thesis. You know, there isn't anyone there to argue incessantly over it. There are endless arguments that happen within Ethereum at times, and it is part of what makes Ethereum so great. Like, there's just so many differing views, but there needs to be some agreement now. I hope that folks are seeing it, that price going down is not good for Ethereum. It's not good for proof of stake. It's not good for the security of the network. It's not good for attracting new users and new investors to the space. So like, just accept that and, you know that like that can be a unifying force to grow the community and to grow the value of ETH, and just stop fighting it.
Well, so here's what's interesting, right? And I think this is a very important framing. You said, the market cap of Sol, right? I think if you ask the Solana people, especially the ones who are driving the narratives, right? They are okay with talking about price, but they're also okay with talking about market cap, right? They would say that the market cap of Sol should be $1 trillion, right? Now, in order for the market cap of Sol, the math on this is fairly simple, right? In order for the market cap to go up to 1 trillion, the price of an individual unit of Sol must also go up, right? Like this is math. And I think if you said, should Ethereum be a 1 trillion or 5 trillion or $10 trillion asset, right? I think most people, that would not be a controversial statement, right? Like the network should be worth this, right? But then you go, okay, well then the price of ETH needs to be 10K. And they're like, whoa. Like, let's not talk about price. That's crazy. And it's like, it's the same thing. Like, it's the same thing, guys, right? Like the network should be worth more than it is today. It just should. It is better than the price of the asset and the market cap reflect. That's my very deep belief, right? Now, okay, what do we do about that? Why is that happening? If the market cap of ETH should be $1 trillion, just to pick a number, right? Like, there's a meme we can all get around, right? Like, let's get ETH to $1 trillion, right? What does that require? I think it's, depending on how many ETH you think are in circulation, which, thank God that meme is gone. The Bitcoin maxis stop going after us for like, no one knows how many ETH there are, right? But, it's around 10K. It's probably like 99.5 or 9.8 or something like that gets ETH to $1 trillion. Okay, let's get ETH to $1 trillion. It should be $1 trillion asset class. Should ETH be worth more than NVIDIA? Absolutely. Yes, obviously it should, right? Should ETH be worth more than gold? Gold's got some historical relevance, right? Let's not shit on it too hard, but like there's a world where you would easily say, yes, like ETH should be worth more than that, right? And the funny thing is when you sidestep what's the price of ETH? The price of ETH needs to go up, right? And talk about the market cap, it makes it much more compelling from a psychological standpoint for people to talk about it. It's like, let's get ETH to $1 trillion. Forget about the math of how we get there, the price times units, right? Let's just get ETH to $1 trillion. That would be a huge line that we could all go, okay, yeah, we're going to get behind that. And again, you can talk about price, you can talk about momentum, you can talk about, historical returns, right? Like I've been around ETH long enough, thankfully, that $2,000 ETH still, if I stop and zoom out for a second, ETH being over 2K is still wild, like it's still a thing that like, you know, there are a lot of timelines where like that didn't happen, right, for reasons. You know, and so it's easy to look at ETH at 2K and be like, this was historically good. If we underperformed, and this is the thing, right? If ETH didn't move and stayed at 2K for the next 5 years, it would still be the best performing asset that I've ever held, right? And so, you know, like, what's wrong then? Well, it's momentum. 4 years of sideways price action doesn't feel good. It's getting better. If it's getting better, then why doesn't the price reflect it? Okay, I'll tell you why. Because the narrative that we are pushing to the world is not working. We need, and this is something that I was thinking about writing, and I started a couple times, and I was like, do I even want to, you know, kick the drama off again, right? And it's like, I don't know if there's an issue of leadership in the EF, and just to be unequivocally clear about this, there is absolutely no issue with leadership or direction from the EF from a technical standpoint, from a research standpoint. As a research org, it is incredible. It is done, you know, and it's software. Software takes longer than we would like, and you can make jokes about Vitalik told us, you know, the merger's coming in 20 minutes in 2017 and blah, blah, blah. But like, we've done everything that that we said we would as a community, and the EF has delivered everything and more than we thought was going to be possible from a technical standpoint, right? We are there from a technical standpoint. But if you live in a bubble of tech and you can't communicate to people why this is important, right? Like, you know, talking about NVIDIA. Okay. NVIDIA has a marketing arm. You might be shocked to hear this, right? It's not purely driven by the technology, right? You know, their CEO is up there talking about why the world is changing and, you know, why, like, you know, graphics cards are going to be the new oil. And like, you know, there is a lot of momentum around communicating what NVIDIA does, right? In the same way that, you know, Microsoft communicates what Microsoft, like, organizations, whether they're for-profit companies or you know, research orgs or whatever, need to communicate to the world why they're important. They must. They have to, right? We want people to allocate capital to things that are good and to not allocate capital to things that are bad. That is fucking fundamental to markets, right? So if you're sitting there saying, well, my thing is just inherently good, and so I'm not going to talk about it. I'm only going to talk about this very narrow dimension that appeals to a very narrow slice of people, right? That's madness. That's wild to think that that is a reasonable belief, right? And then it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to do it, but someone else should, right? We need someone else to coordinate. Unfortunately, for good or ill, Vitalik is the shelling point of Ethereum, and if Vitalik is not doing it, and if Vitalik is not saying that it is good, it will be very hard for it to happen, right? So I think what needs, like what Ethereum needs more than anything else is a CMO. If you appointed a chief marketing officer of Ethereum today, what should they do? What should that person do? That person should go and they should talk to all the researchers. They should deeply understand, not the tech, but the direction of the tech, right? Why are you doing this? What are the problems that you're solving, right? Why are you solving this problem and not that problem? Why is this solution the better solution to the problem than this thing? What does that enable? What does that mean for an end user? What does it mean for the world? That Ethereum CMO that went and did that went and talked to Vitalik and Dankrad and, like, you know, all of the EF researchers and deeply understood not the tech, but the meaning behind the tech, the reason why they're doing it, and then went out and packaged that up and communicated it to people would be an incredible shift. An incredible shift. And I'm not saying they go out and they start running around, you know, with ETH to 10K price targets on a, you know, board, standing on the street, waving it around, right? They're going to communicate why Ethereum is important. And we have lost that. People in the ecosystem, deep in the ecosystem, do not understand why ETH is important. And it is important. It is as important, if not maybe more important than even Bitcoin. So if we can't communicate that, if we don't have people that are able to communicate that, and hoping that they just organically appear is lunacy. It's insane. They're not going to just turn up and do this. You need to find a person who is an incredible marketing person from wherever they come from, pay them $10 million a year and get them to come and restructure how we communicate about Ethereum and how we tell the world that Ethereum is important. That's what needs to happen. That is what needs to happen. And if that person turned up, they don't need to leave the app. They don't need to change research. They don't need to change timeline. They don't need to do any of the stuff. They just need to go and speak to the right people, understand what we're trying to do, and then figure out a way to communicate it to the average person on the street. The end. The end. Done. Find that person and, elevate them so that they can actually do it, and they've got a mandate to go and do it. And that will be a huge shift. You don't need a new leader.
I totally agree with a ton of that. And miraculously, it actually looks like these people are materializing to kind of take up this mantle. Like, I think it was like last week or the week before. It's Etherealize, I think it's called, Etherealize Ventures or something. I think it's a guy named Vivek behind it. I don't know the incentive structure behind that or like how he's being funded. I need to listen to that Laura Shin podcast or have him on our podcast, but it's amazing that people are just taking up this mantle on their own, as it appears to me. I also want to get your take, Kain, on just, okay, we've talked about this seemingly disconnection between the EF and what's actually happening on Ethereum L1, for instance. What's kind of amusing to me is the people that are now coming in and starting to gobble up the L1 block space. It's a trend that's emerging is it's TradFi. It's like tokenized funds, and then it's TradFi boomers just buying ETH. In my mind, like, this was not at all what the EF wanted, but this is what's happening. And I think it's funny because, they've been kind of toiling away on governance frameworks and things like that. I don't even know if they're aware of the people that love what they've built, but curious, like, what you think of this. And I mean, I think this trend is just going to pick up steam personally, but is this what we wanted? Is this what they wanted? Like, just kind of curious your thoughts.
It's a very good question, because I do think that there is a wing of Ethereum, right, that is anti-TradFi. But if you want to dismantle TradFi, the best way to do it is from within. Get them using our rails, and then the barriers to entry get even lower. If you Ethereum pill TradFi, then, Aave becomes far, far easier to eat their lunch, right? And so, I think the fact that TradFi and institutions see the value in like a credibly neutral settlement layer that is worldwide speaks to a whole bunch of things. It speaks to the tech, but it also speaks to the world we live in today, right? Where we don't have credibly neutral settlement layers, and people are starting to fucking notice because people are using the leverage that they have over the settlement layers to do all kinds of interesting, political things, right? So, if you're a TradFi person who only cares about markets, who only cares about market efficiency, and doesn't want to be subject to the political whims of some jurisdiction, and I'm more referring to Europe than anything else, right? Because Europe's just a fucking dumpster fire. I think the US is far less of a problem here. But if you want to get away from that, like, it's Switzerland. You've built like the Switzerland of the internet, right? Like, it doesn't matter what we think about TradFi using Ethereum. They can use it. It's open and permissionless. We can't block them.
This episode is brought to you by Mantle, the ultimate Ethereum L2 for builders. With over $2.16 billion in TVL, Mantle powers multi-billion-dollar yield-bearing assets like CMETH and FBTC, driving sustainable growth and capital efficiency. Plus, Mantle offers a unique reward station for airdropping different tokens to MNT holders, including one ongoing campaign for 4 million Athena tokens and another for 570,000 Eigen. To learn more, go to mantle.xyz, and thanks to Mantle for supporting us at the Edge Podcast and Edge newsletter.
Kain, I mean, it feels like Ethereum is being attacked from every angle right now. We've got, people inside the community, people outside the community, competitors, all different directions. What's your take on this? It feels like there's just no reprieve from any angle, to be honest.
So it's quite interesting to me that, there was a period of time where Ethereum was a threat to Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin maxis genuinely, like deep down, they knew that it was better than Bitcoin, like on some dimension, right? Like the fact that you could run smart contracts, there was a period of time where they were like, that's not real. This is all bullshit. And then all of a sudden smart contracts were running and they were like, oh, fuck. And you saw this like wave of kind of hatred towards Ethereum of it's a scam and we don't know how many ETH there are and it's a pre-mine and they really rallied. I don't know, their weird steak restaurant cabal nights that they hold, right? Like they definitely, there felt like some level of coordination, right? Where they were like, we got to kill this thing. There was a moment of time where the Bitcoiners really were like, we've got to kill this thing and we've got to just stomp it into the ground so that no one ever thinks about it again. And it didn't work. ICOs just blew that out of the water, right? And all of a sudden it was like, maybe this is more relevant than Bitcoin. There was a cycle where people were like, yeah, Bitcoin, sure, or whatever, right? But ETH's going to flip it but then while this was happening, as ETH started to grow and become a thing that could be a target for fast followers, magically, all these fast followers show up, right? Whether it's Cardano or Polkadot or Cosmos or, Solana or, later Avalanche. And there was this like litany. And what are you going to do? You're going to punch up. So you had Bitcoin punching down, and then you had all of these like no one was punching up to Bitcoin. No one was like, Litecoin wasn't like, we're better than Bitcoin. Like that just wasn't a thing, right? So now this is maybe just the random vagaries of the world. I don't know, right? But it definitely feels like Ethereum has been caught in this middle, right? And if Ethereum had flipped Bitcoin, let's say, there's a world where in 2017 or whatever, ICOs keep going and, they grow bigger and bigger and ETH flips Bitcoin, then of course you'd have the Bitcoin people punching up at Ethereum, but it wouldn't matter. You'd be like, sure, guys, cool. You're still better. Don't worry about it, right? But that didn't happen. Ethereum got stuck in the middle, and it's kind of, feels like, and it's a bit wild to think that like TradFi are the ones coming to the rescue of Ethereum, being like, no, Ethereum's good, right? So I think this is just a weird market structural thing of being second, maybe, where everyone's coming for you underneath. They're not coming for Bitcoin, they're coming for you. They're taking pot shots at Ethereum, not at Bitcoin. Solana people aren't like, Bitcoin's bad. In fact, Solana people and Bitcoin people have kind of formed a little bit of an alliance of kinds, right? And Solana's like, all right, we're gonna, be the front line here, and you guys can lob your ICBMs at them, and we'll take them down.
I think a part of the interest that grew in Solana, especially from like a retail standpoint, and I always think like retail is just like how we label folks who aren't like claiming to be like full-time professional investors. It really is such a valuable audience to be able to capture their attention. So as Solana grew with like Pump.Fund, for example, I think it reminds us that like the reason so many people get into this space is they want to make money. And this goes back to almost like a cultural issue we've talked about within Ethereum, where I do believe there are so many people that LARP about wealth not mattering, money not mattering, profits don't matter. I mean, they also conveniently hold an unimaginable amount of wealth. I always find like the folks who are absolutely the richest will tell you that money doesn't matter. And I'm like, we'll tell that to folks who are like struggling to pay their rent and struggling to pay their bills. So you've got Solana, which is just, happy to say, we are a platform for you to get rich. Come to Solana, come to Pump.Fund. And then you see the most like nihilistic type behaviors emerge with all of these tokens, literally tens of millions. I was reading the other day, it's something like over 30 million tokens or something have been created on Pump.Fund. It's like 10,000 a day, 312,000 a month on average since their launch. So I think the question is there something that's like broken within crypto, I'm not just blaming this on like Pump.Fun or Solana. Like, I'm actually grateful for the fact that like they cut through the bullshit. They cut through the high FDV launches narrative that was happening, on Ethereum and L2s and also on Solana and other chains, and reminded us that like people want to be able to buy early into tokens and be able to make, unimaginable returns for taking a tremendous amount of risk.
Speculation drives the world. That is just the reality. Whether you like it or not, speculation is what drives markets. It's the underlying force on which markets survive. And if you say speculation is bad, right, then there's sort of a follow-up question of like, do you mean all speculation? Because if you mean all speculation, then you can't actually participate in capitalism. If you're saying, just the types of speculation I don't like, those are the bad ones. It's fine for a, HFT firm to be, speculating on the like infinitesimal price movements of a thing to make the market more efficient. That's cool, right? Using microwave, transmitters on mountains to be able to speculate on what's going to happen and try and, beat the market and be faster to market to adjust prices. Like, that's a form of speculation, right? You're trying to get an edge to be able to speculate faster than other people, but you're still speculating. You're still trying to predict the future. That's what speculation means. You're trying to predict what is going to happen and profit from it. And that is a thing that I think is just like inherent to the world. Even if you're building something, building is speculation. It's sort of wild to me that anyone would turn up in crypto, right, who's been, kind of sucked into this world because they've seen how pure the speculation is. And they say, I'm going to go and build something in here because I'm speculating that this is an important transformative technology, right? But also, I don't want to make any money. Who the do you think you're fooling? Like, the whole point is that we want this to be a place where you can make money to attract people. Because if you were not attracting the smartest people to this place, smart people want to make money. Dumb people, everyone wants to make money. Everyone wants to make money. You can LARP as like, that's not a real thing and you should actually want to make fucking, flowers and rainbows, right? But everyone wants to make money. People have different demand curves for money, for sure, right? Some people just want to be able to pay their rent, and that's it. And then they're good, right? They're happy to just, some people want to be able to colonize Mars, and they're like, I need $80 trillion to do that, right? And their demand curve for money is just like up and to the right forever, right? That's fine. That is fine, right? The idea that like, oh no, you can't, demand more money. You can't want to work for more money than you can spend in, a month or whatever, right? Like that's wild. That's not how the world works. Different people have different motivations. And so I really think that if we want people to care about Ethereum, they need to believe that it is a place where they can build things and make money. We want to attract the best builders. Why do people start startups? Startups are a nightmarish existence. Starting a startup is the worst possible thing that you could ever do. So why does anyone do it? Altruism? F off. That is not the reason why people start startups. People start startups because they believe that there's going to be asymmetric returns from starting a startup, right? So what platform do we want people starting a startup on? We want people starting startups on Ethereum. We want people starting startups on Solana. We want people starting startups in crypto. I actually don't care which network. Mega ETH, Monad, pick Abstract, pick whichever one you want. I want smart kids at MIT and Stanford to be like, I'm going to come and start a startup in crypto because I believe that it is a technology that's going to be important. Now, this is where we get into some nuance, right? If they're coming because they believe that this is a great place to grift, that's a problem. That is a problem, right? But this is the issue, is that the greatest places to grift are the greatest places to build intrinsic value. It is a double-edged sword. And so if you go, well, there's some grift, so shut the whole thing down, it's like that is a net negative for society. And I've said this so many times. If you believe that ICOs should have never happened, you are giga. If your thesis is that the fact that, Jimmy lost $10 speculating on the PumaPay ICO, and therefore all ICOs should be banned forever and it should be, execution for someone who does an ICO, then you don't get Ethereum. Then you don't get Ethereum, right? Like, Ethereum does not happen without an ICO. You're going to give some cracked autist like $20 million and say, go and build a magical decentralized computer platform? No, you are not. And the question is, why was Vitalik here then, right? Why was Vitalik here then? Because I believe very strongly that Vitalik is a smart person and understood that this was both good technology and a great place to be able to fundraise to do things. If you want to do things, you need money. And if you're Vitalik at 16, 17, 18, there's not that many places where you're going to be able to get significant amounts of capital to do the things you want to do. Vitalik is not an idiot. He came to crypto for a reason, because he saw that this is a place where you could accrue a lot of capital to be able to do things and make an impact on the world. But getting the capital is the starting point for the thing. You have to have the capital to be able to do it. It is better. The world is better off for Vitalik having $20 million than Vitalik having no money. It just is. So if that's the case, then you go, well, but the problem is you got Charles. And Charles is just grifting people, and so therefore we should shut the whole thing down. No, you can't make that call, right? You have to accept that you're going to have a Charles if you have a Vitalik. And it's still worth it. Because guess what? People waste a lot of money on a lot of dumb shit all day long. The world is inefficient. We do not allocate capital efficiently. And the fact that there is some inefficiency in capital allocation in crypto, and you're like, cancel the whole thing, like, go and look at TradFi. There was a whole period of time where we were like just allocating money to people triple counting trees. Like, are you kidding me? Like, no. You can't, like, the fact that a system is not perfect does not invalidate the system. And so my view is that we want people to come into crypto. We want people to believe they can make money, they can accrue capital, they can do things, they can have an impact. And we also want them to believe that that impact will be long lasting, that it will change the world, because not everyone is purely driven by money. They also want to have an impact. I want to have an impact. I like money, but I want to have an impact. I want to do something that is going to make the world a better place. And so building a crypto for me was such an obvious thing, because A, it was a place where I could accrue capital to do the things I wanted to do. I saw the value in having a permissionless execution engine like Ethereum, and I wanted to support it, and I wanted to build on it. Like, not even want. Want is the wrong term. I needed to. It was so obvious to me that I needed to drop what I was doing, which is pretty rare. You don't see people drop their startups and just go and migrate to another place. I dropped a startup that was doing well, and I was like, sorry, guys, someone else can deal with this. I'm going over here because this is too important. That's what we want. That's what we want. And I think Solana does a better job of communicating that today than Ethereum does.
Hey folks, I want to tell you about our sponsor, Gearbox, the protocol that reimagines on-chain lending. With Gearbox, you can access 10x credit across DeFi or lend for passive yields with single asset deposits and no impermanent loss. Users can access leverage to margin trade, stake, farm, and more. To learn more about Gearbox, go to gearbox.fi.
Egg. A quite astonishing commodity. The cause of your desire. Egg. Which fills the inner void. Egg.
Eggs are pretty epic, but you know what's more epic? Paying for them with crypto. Borrow, earn, and now pay with Moonwell.
Say hello to Puffer Unify. Puffer Finance is expanding beyond native liquid restaking with new products such as Unify-based rollup and Unify Pre-Confirmations AVS. Unify is not just another L2. Unify is a based rollup, one that will solve L2 issues, such as slow withdrawals versus instant withdrawals with Puffer Unify. Puffer Unify is fast, capable of sub-second transactions. Unify also has boosted Puffer points, which means if you bridge assets, you earn boosted Puffer points and rewards from dApps on Unify. Puffer's core products mean a bright future for Ethereum. Learn more at puffer.fi.
Kain, so you kind of just alluded to, I think, your motivation for starting startups. I think this is a good point to kind of switch to Infinex. How do you still maintain that passion, that drive? Because you've clearly said it's really fucking hard and people shouldn't do it, but why are you doing it again? And then where does Infinex sit kind of within this speculation sandbox that you've been talking about? Like, what does it do for us? Why build Infinex, basically, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so why did I? And then, like, what is the purpose of it? I think we can separate those out, right? So why did I? I didn't intend to. I really didn't. I promise. It was not intentional. I had a guy that was working in my family office who was, like, looking for a startup idea to start. And I was like, well, I've got a lot of ideas and I've got some capital. So when we get a good idea, I'll give it to you and you can run with it, right? Now, some things went wrong in that process, right? Mainly because of me, because I kicked this thing off, and then instead of allowing it to be like a small scale startup that a first time founder should be able to handle with 5 employees or whatever, I was like, no, like, throw fuel on the fire. Let's grow this thing as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, what happened was a first time founder who's like in their early 20s is not set up to be, running a startup with like tens of millions of dollars worth of capital and 50 people, and it just got out of hand really quickly. And so I had to step in and take it over. So basically it was like, hey, let's go and, light a fire and, set off some fireworks, right? And we burned down the forest, unfortunately, unintentionally. But once I realized the value in what we were building, and once I was like, okay, this is a thing that is going to be incredibly powerful. And once I realized myself, I had to construct a narrative for myself for why this made sense, right? Like I could just go and hang. I was free diving. I was running. I was racing cars every once in a while. Like I was having a great time. It was awesome. And now I'm in an office 80 hours plus a week again. But I do love building things. I really love building things, but if I'm going to build something, it has to be important. And the narrative that was able to kind of capture my attention, get me to go all in, and also get my family's also like, we've already been through this. Why are you putting us through this again? My kids are like, we didn't see you for years at a time, and now you're back to this again. Like, this is a bad trade. Like, we've got our pudgy penguins. We're fine. And I'm like, all right, like, no, trust me, guys, this is going to be worth it, right? And so the question is, how could it be worth it? On what dimension? For an 8-year-old who has everything that they could possibly want, on what possible dimension could this be worth the trade of seeing her father half as much as she otherwise would? Like, how's that trade worth it? And luckily she doesn't have a choice, right? For me, because I think if it was the democracy in my house, I probably wouldn't be here. But the reason why I think it's worth it is because I think that we have an opportunity to transition crypto from a place where most transactions happen inside a centralized database, which invalidates the entire point of the thing. If every transaction in crypto happens inside CZ's database, we have failed, right? So we have to transition away from this. We've wanted to for a long time. We just haven't had the tech. We haven't had, the right people focused on it or whatever. It needed that narrative to be rekindled. People have tried it and it's just failed, right? So the view is that if we can transition crypto out of this centralized exchange dominated era into an on-chain era, and there's a lot of people working on this, Uniswap's working on it. There's a lot of like second-time DeFi founders that are working on this, right, in different dimensions. But if we can do this, then we have made crypto far more sustainable, far more real, far more impactful. If we can lower the barriers by moving everyone on chain, we're in a much, much better place. And so I think that it was sort of beholden on me as someone who's been very successful in crypto to step up and be like, I'm going to let's finish the job. The job's not done yet. Let's go and finish it. And, you know, whether there's money in it or not was sort of irrelevant. But I am one of those people that has a very, very elastic demand for money. I will take me having more money over the money sitting in the street. I will absolutely take that because I can invest it. I can do whatever I want. For me, money, like from a very young age, I worked out that money is a thing that allows you to control your environment. And for whatever reason inside my brain, I have a part of it that is like, I want to control my environment. I do not want to be controlled. Now, I know what those reasons are, but it is what it is, right? Like I want to have control of my environment. I came from an environment that was out of control my whole life. And I was like, no more. I'm going to make sure I can control my environment. And so all things being equal, the more power I have over my environment, the better and safer I feel. And so that's another motivator for me. And that's good. If we believe that killing centralized exchanges, bringing everyone on chain is a good thing, you need to find crazy people like me that will be motivated to grind on this problem and solve it. And you need to find whatever it takes, whatever the motivation is. And the good thing about money is that it's a very universal motivator. And so if you can have this universal motivator that is available to get people to do the things you want to do, the world will be better off. And so that's my view, right? Like that's why I'm doing this. That's why, and then there's also an element of like, it feels satisfying to me to finish the job. We built DeFi and then it was kind of not accessible to everyone, right? We need to make it accessible to everyone. I want to finish the job. That's like an emotional thing that I feel, right? Like the job's not done.
So will Infinex focus mainly on just trading? I mean, that's the functionality I'm familiar with on the app, because some of the interviews I've heard you do, it almost sounded like you might integrate or are planning to integrate like things like lending or staking. And, I go back to something else I heard you talk about, like just meeting users where they are, because there's a profile of a crypto investor user that is here, which is someone who's like really motivated by self-custody and being in control of their environment, to your point, like really harnessing the power of crypto, like wanting to be 100% in control. So many of those folks are here. I'm sure there's more of them still to seek out, but now it feels like we have to go after the users who are willing now to trade crypto. Maybe they're new to it, they're here to make money, but they would normally go to something like Binance or Coinbase. And instead, the word I'm going to use is trick, not in like a bad way, but like we trick them into using what is actually giving them access to everything on chain. Like normally with centralized exchanges, if you've ever signed up, anyone who's been around for a number of years, you remember when there were new tokens that you wanted to trade that weren't available unless you were on something like Binance. And that was a moat for Binance, that they kept listing tokens early. Well, then with DeFi summer, things shifted and suddenly everything was on chain and the centralized exchanges were racing to list those tokens. But the ultimate edge was being able to transact on chain. So I feel like it makes sense in this evolution that Infinex would give you all of that accessibility, do whatever the hell you want on chain, but have it in an app that looks and feels like you're on Binance or Coinbase.
That's it. It's very simple, right? Like meet users where they are. We can sit there and say, we're building a bunch of functionality for what we want people to do. That's not going to work out very well, right? Like users are doing what they want now. Us trying to change their behavior is not going to be effective, right? So we need to meet them where they live, which means replicating the functionality that they're using on Binance. Now, there's cool stuff that we can do in addition to that. that right now they can't do on Binance for both technical market structure reasons, whatever. But they're going to be excited about that too, and we're going to make that available to them. So that's the end goal, right? To replace the centralized exchanges as the primary interaction point of crypto. That's it.
You know, somebody like you, Kain, I guess you're probably hyper concerned about UI UX, and to me, it looks like AI is starting to disrupt maybe this GUI of how we even interact with DeFi possibly. So I don't know if when you started and where we are now, if a lot has changed with AI, we were like, holy shit, well, I got to try and jam this in somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's something we think about quite a bit, right? So I think if you imagine AI in the form of LLMs, right? And, we've had AI in different forms at different times, going back to machine learning, and then, there's a long history of different approaches to AI and how you can solve problems. The LLM solution, this idea of interacting via, text or even voice with a computer agent to do the things that you want. I think there are two components. One is it feels more done than it is sometimes, right? It can lull you into a false sense of security in terms of how good it is. And then sometimes it's wow, this is actually way better than I thought, right? And so there's this weird barbell thing where it hasn't quite landed yet in the middle of this is useful to me every day and I don't need to worry about it. I think that AI as an interaction point for crypto is inevitable. If we're talking about making it easier for people to do things on chain, crypto makes it easier for people to do things on chain, right? You have this open platform, right? That anyone can interact with. There aren't gatekeepers, etc., right? And then you add AI as a layer on top of crypto, and you're now you don't even need to understand it. You don't need to understand why it's doing the things. You just have a job that you want to do, and this is going to help be a translation layer. I think that's really cool. As opposed to saying, okay, we've got crypto, and the way you do it is you go to this website that's run on a database, and we kind of abstract it all away. That's been the primary way of doing that. And so getting people on chain to do crypto stuff by the AI sitting as a translation layer, to me, feels really powerful. The problem is it needs to be really good for that to work, right? Because if it translates it in the wrong way, and there's a lot of risk in crypto, right? In the way that there isn't in your online banking. An AI agent can't accidentally send your money to North Korea, right? In an online banking app. There's some guardrails there. Whereas in crypto, it 100% could. If North Korea gets into our AIs and tricks them all into sending the money to Mr. Kim, then we're in trouble. So we just need to be very careful about how we're actually doing this, and I think that it's going to be incremental steps, but it's coming very fast, right? And I'm someone who's paid attention to AI for a long time, and I genuinely believe that AGI in some form, right? Where we have agents that are as smart as us in a broad dimension of tasks, right? Is really, really close. And if that's the case, humans make mistakes. It's kind of weird, right? If I give a task to one of my analysts, right? They will inevitably make multiple mistakes in that. And I need to then course correct and be I would never think oh, I gave it to my analyst and therefore I, don't need to check it, right? We understand inherently that humans are fallible and we have checks and balances. We don't have it as much with tech because the way tech's been kind of presented to us is this feature complete thing of you press a button, it does a thing, and it's very constrained in the outcome, but all of a sudden you're handing it to this weird black box and an output comes out and you're so we need to shift, I think, our perspective on okay, cool, I just asked this, black box what to do and it said do this. I don't just blindly follow that and do that immediately, right? I need to apply some level of my own filter to it. So I think there's going to be a slow process rolling out, but we're already thinking about how AI could interact in Infinex. We would be insane not to. The market is forcing this on us. We need to accelerate this.
Kain, would you ever integrate like any of the existing protocols? Like the one I'm most familiar with is Wayfinder. And if anyone's not familiar with that, go back, we did a podcast like a few months ago on it, but it made a lot of sense from like an incentive standpoint that they would basically allow folks to put up token or call it like a collateral to say, hey, here's a path. Here's how you can bridge between optimism and base. And like, I do believe like something like this, some design like this is going to scale at some point. And so whether it's Wayfinder or something else, is it just a matter of something proving itself and then Infinex can incorporate that? Or do you think you have to design your own AI agent sort of protocol native to Infinex?
Here's the funny thing, right, about Infinex. Infinex is built for people, so it has a lot of guardrails because we don't trust people. We're trying to bring people on chain who don't necessarily know what they're doing, right? We don't want an open playing field for anything to happen, right? Because they're going to get some bad outcomes. LLMs are exactly the same. You put an LLM into that environment and it's got guardrails. Like it's inherently the thing you're trying to do of like make it easier for people also as a byproduct makes it easier for LLMs to do stuff, right? We're not just, giving them a private key and saying YOLO, let's see what happens, right? So I do think that there's a lot of alignment there. And the opportunity of that is what, for me, is the reason why we're sort of accelerating this. I don't know that we land a great agent this cycle. I feel like it happens in the next bear market, that someone really lands this all together and gets it there. But at the end of the day, if you have AGI, you don't even need interfaces, right? Like if you, so like there is a race against time on some level, right? And if you have ASI, then you don't even need people. So then all of this has been, kind of pointless.
Let's run through the key features within Infinex. So I kind of want to do this like rapid fire style, but I want to make sure listeners or anyone that watches it on YouTube is able to understand how the app works. By the way, easiest thing for folks is go to infinex.xyz. I would actually encourage you to do it on your mobile phone. I did it on my Apple phone, and because there are passkeys integrated into this, one of the things that was shocking for me is as I set it up, I set it up in about 2 minutes. It created, I believe, a Solana wallet and then an EVM wallet. And so I just sort of followed the prompts. It was not what I expected. I'm used to having to be on desktop and download software, download a wallet, and do all sorts of things here. So again, if you got an Apple phone, I don't know if it works the same way on Android. So let's start there. Is this a wallet? Is it a vault? What's the difference? Are those terms the same? And what's actually being used there to store our crypto?
Yeah. So we started off, and I think this was an important thing to do. It could be a little bit of cope, but I think that it was the right approach, which was build a secure place that you could put crypto that would be easy, but also non-custodial, right? So we spent a long time building that. We could have just YOLO done the wallet side of things, right? And had a lot more functionality faster, but it would have created a problem, right? And the problem would be you start building functionality, people get excited about it. What they want is more functionality. They do not want you to pause for 2 months while you go and, re-engineer your whole security architecture. That's not going to end well for you, right? And so we had a view that we needed to get TVL on the platform first to prove that this was a safe place for people to put their crypto. Because now, as it becomes more useful, I want you to have all your crypto in here, right? And I want you to be able to make decisions about how you store certain aspects of your crypto inside Infinex in ways that match your OPSEC and security profile, right? And so the way that that works is you have vaults, and vaults have different structures to them. You could have a Bitcoin vault, in theory. This is something that's coming out, right? That is powered by a multisig. An on-chain Bitcoin multisig. That is a thing that has existed in Bitcoin for a long time. And if you want, self-sovereign Bitcoin that no one can, move, you can put your Bitcoin into a vault inside of Infinex that is, again, secured by this multisig construct, right? It doesn't require any external platforms. Doesn't, it's your keys and your crypto, right? But then you want to trade the Bitcoin. And trading Bitcoin is annoying on chain, right? And so you want to find a way that you can move it into a place, let's say you have 100 Bitcoin and you want to trade 2 Bitcoin. So you want to be able to go and take that, you have to do an action on the 100 Bitcoin, this is where the risk in crypto comes from, right? Because if you want to do something to 100 Bitcoin or 2 Bitcoin, it's the same security, right? And so you want to move 2 Bitcoin out of that very secure vault that you've created that uses only, an on-chain multisig. You move 2 Bitcoin out into your trading account, and now it's in a place where it does rely on other systems to be able to recover it, right? So the security posture has changed, but that's okay because it's a trade-off you're willing to make that you understand, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to be trading this Bitcoin. There's inherent risk in trading Bitcoin, right? Like, when funds are in motion. So now you've got Bitcoin in a wallet, and that wallet is secured by NEAR. If you're a Bitcoin maxi and you say, I've got, it's non-custodial, but it's secured by NEAR. And you're like, whoa, you're telling me that my Bitcoin, if the NEAR network fails, some scam pre-mined thing, is at risk, I'm out. And that's fine. Like, that's okay. If that's your posture, that's fine. You can just keep your Bitcoin in a multisig on-chain on the Bitcoin network, and it never touches anything else. And if all you want to do is look at your Bitcoin occasionally and see what the balance is, Infinex is a great place for you. It's a much better place for you than even, having it sitting in obviously Binance or Coinbase custody or, some kind of hardware wallet or whatever, right? But if you want to trade Bitcoin and you want some of your Bitcoin in a place where you can easily trade it, now you get the best of both worlds. And if you're like, yeah, you know what, like NEAR's probably not going to collapse tomorrow. I'm okay putting 2% of my Bitcoin at risk to be able to trade it. And then you get to log into the platform and you can click a button and trade your Bitcoin into whatever, XRP or Litecoin or whatever boomer asset you are excited about. And that is something that just is not possible in the current world that we live in. You have to have your assets on different platforms in order to have different security postures. You have some of your Bitcoin in Binance, which is totally custodial, totally at risk. And then you have some of your Bitcoin in cold storage. But it's all on the same platform. You have to remember, where is my cold storage wallet and how do I look at the balance? And you go to a different website to look at that. And then you go, okay, but I've also got some ETH that's also in cold storage in a different security posture. Where is that again? Oh yeah, that's on my ledger. So I got to go and look on my ledger to see what the balance of that is. Oh, and I got an airdrop. Now what do I do? And so it's so much fragmentation to be able to accommodate the different security postures. Infinex just puts an overlay across all of those different security postures and says, okay, you want to have some ETH that's on an L2 that is in some unaudited contract that's earning 10,000% APY, go nuts. But you can see that on the same platform as your ETH that's locked in an on-chain safe that is, purely non-custodial. It doesn't require, the world could get nuked, and as long as the Ethereum network is still running, you can still get your ETH out. And that's a really, really important construct to communicate, is that we can give you multiple postures in the same platform to accommodate your security so you can set it up as you see fit. But you know what? For the vast, vast majority of people who have 0.001% of their net worth in crypto, you just put it in a wallet and you want to be able to do stuff easily and you want to be able to recover it with your Gmail. You're not a target of North Korean spear phishing. You're not, and you're not going to get rugged, right? Because you've got a passkey now, and the passkey is securing your assets most of the time. If you lose your passkey, you go to Gmail and you recover your wallet. It's as simple as that, right? And we don't need nation state level OPSEC for that. Like, you have $500 of ETH, it's fine. all right? But if you do have 500,000 ETH, yeah, we can accommodate that as well. We put it in a different place, but you can see it in the same platform.
I think that Vault kind of example that you walked through was really illuminating for me, because in my head, I was kind of like, okay, Infinex is, maybe disrupting centralized exchanges. But I hadn't thought about you're kind of also going after the hardware wallet, like the ledgers of the world, and kind of smashing in that capability as well. So that is super interesting. And then keeping it all in one place where it's accessible, like you said. So when I'm actually on the UI, another thing I see is Swidge. I believe this is like a newly created term, possibly by Infinex, but correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe tell us like what that's all about.
So the intent of Swidge, it's swap and bridge, right? Just a mashup of swap and bridge that one of our engineers coined as an internal like code word, and then we're like, actually, this is fine. Like, let's just use this. And so what it allows you to do is across the 8 networks we support, and soon to be 9, I think, because we're adding Berachain pretty soon. You can, and this is important, right? Like, you can do a Solana transaction without setting up a new wallet, new seed phrase, new everything, right? As an ETH maxi. As an ETH maxi, you can set up, and you're like, oh, I really want to buy some Trump. If you want to buy some Trump today and you're an ETH maxi and you don't have a Solana wallet, like to your point, you got to go and like download a thing, and now you've got your chisel out again, chiseling a seed phrase, and you're like, not again. You can put it in your, hole in your backyard where you put all the, stone tablets that you've chiseled your seed phrases into. And it's like, no, you already have this set up. You have an account. You can, if there's all of a sudden, if you haven't gotten to Solana for whatever reasons over the last 5 years, but today is the day, great, click a button, bang, now you got a Solana token, the end. And so what that allows you to do is basically abstract away all of the setup of wallets, seed phrases, everything. You have an Infinex account that basically gives you the ability to quickly go and do something on another chain. And you use the same passkey. The passkey controls all of the different addresses on all the different networks.
Can we talk about the Earn feature, Kain? Like, what are the opportunities that we can expect there? Like, will we see all DeFi opportunities integrated? Is this something that would be gated by the Infinex team, or would it be open to like DeFi protocols being able to like actually like build access to your audience through Infinex to be able to like, use all the different opportunities like lending, borrowing, LPing on chain?
So one thing that's interesting is there's been this trend in the last maybe 18 months towards turning DeFi activities into swaps. Right? There are aggregators that are saying like, this is really just a swap. You have ETH and you want Aave ETH, which is a yield-bearing version of ETH, right? Or you want to do a swap and put your ETH in and get some USDC out, right? You're basically just converting one thing into another, right? Like you're taking an asset and moving from one state to another. And so people are working on this. They're building out the infra to basically allow any of these DeFi activities. And, we saw this with Instadap. They were the first ones to do this, right? They're like, we're going to just give you the ability to click a button, maker, compound, whatever you want, right? You can move around. It was still a dApp, so it was still a piece of shit. The UX was bad, right? But it was directionally correct, right? And so what we are doing is basically saying, okay, any recipe that you can concoct for DeFi yield, you can access by using these aggregators. You've got some USDC, you want to swap into USDE, we'll find the route to get it on the best network to earn yield. And so we see that as almost, convergence of this swapping mechanism, this cross-chain swapping mechanism. You've got ETH on mainnet, but Arbitrum AETH is giving you the best yield. Get it there. I shouldn't need to know how to get it there. I probably do in the short term need to know that I want it there. I need to know that that's an opportunity that I want. I read it on Twitter or I saw a podcast, right? And you guys are like, hey, there's a great opportunity over here. And it's like, okay, I know a thing. The problem is knowing something is not enough in crypto, right? Now you need to figure out how do I get there? And the getting there is often the hardest part. So if it's like, oh, I just open up my phone, click a button on Infinex to go into that new, food farm or whatever, cool, easy, done. We can do that in one click.
Kain, I saw a tweet of yours recently. It was something
I'm sorry about that. I'm sure it was...
No, it was good. It was something like airdrops being one of the most kind of delightful experiences in crypto for you. So yeah, maybe let's talk a bit about airdrops, because that obviously seems integral to Infinex plans. How are you kind of tackling those, all the integrations, I guess, needed? And then are you doing anything else like special with airdrops? Because I think a lot can be done with them, to be honest.
A lot can be done. I mean, I love Pudgy Penguins. I'm a big Pudgy maxi, right? But seeing the process of doing the Pengu airdrop was a fucking nightmare. And it wasn't even that they did a bad job, right? It was super high demand into a thing, and it was just a clunky process. You have ETH people who have a thing and you want to give them a thing on Solana. Those two networks do not know that they exist. They're completely oblivious to each other, right? So now you've got to find some cross-chain way of messaging, that this thing exists, validate it, give a person this thing on here, also do all the actions that are required. We've been doing cross-chain airdrops now for 6 months, and you just click a button. It's really simple, right? You just click a button and you claim it on the network, because the platform itself knows that your passkey controls all these different wallets. It already knows that. It's an oracle. If you can control this thing with a passkey, if it's the same passkey, we know. It can literally, you have this mechanism that can tell. And so what we are hoping to do, once we've got a little bit more market power, is say, okay, you want to do a large-scale airdrop. And many of these airdrops are happening on new chains. So your bearer chain, you're a protocol that's just launched on bearer chain, and you want to airdrop to all the people that bought some weird meme coin on Solana. This is a non-trivial problem. You're not on Solana, right? Like, there's stuff that's happening on Solana that you're excited about, and you want to, bring those people into your ecosystem. But you got to now go and get Rust engineers to build programs, and it's a whole thing. It's not an easy process. So what we're saying is we will allow a person who has an Infinex account, if you've done something in your Solana wallet that's inside Infinex, you can just airdrop straight to the Bearchain wallet that is related to that. But there's a slightly bigger problem, which is what happens if I did that thing on a different Solana wallet, right? Because if you're like me, you have 50 different Solana wallets across Phantom and Soulflare and all these different places, right? And what if the thing that they're rewarding happened in a Photon wallet? That is or happened in BananaBot, right? You bought some random thing and you got how do you do that, right? How do you actually connect that? What we're going to do is allow people to basically connect those wallets and sign a message to say, this is also my wallet. And now you can see all the connected wallets, right? And you can basically go and say, I want to, and this is the important part, I want to drop to the BananaBot wallet that bought this thing on this day, right? And then Infinex does the rest of the work for you. You send the tokens to a distribution contract, which we've set up, right? And we will literally go and validate that wallet that you've specified is the one that gets the amount of tokens, and then they can claim it on Bearchain. They get their Bearchain wallet, they go and click a button, and bang, tokens are there. You abstract away all of the cross-chain stuff, all of the infra that you need to validate wallets and everything. And the interesting thing about airdrops, is we saw Liquify, points program, they created this points program infrastructure and basically captured the entire market in 20 minutes, right? Because there was nothing better. So this is such an easy market if you just try to make it slightly easier to just capture everything really quickly. And we see it as a very powerful moat once we've got that, because now it's why would I go and do my own airdrop, when I can just go to Infinex and be like, here you go.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. One other thing I want to talk about is Bull Run. So what's the TLDR on this? Is this something that you've all created in-house? Maybe just give us the quick genesis story and what it is.
Yeah, so I was on the way to ECC and I had an idea for a fantasy trading game that was going to be powered by NFT cards, similar to Fantasy, but instead of being for influencers and KOLs, it was for the actual tokens themselves. So we built it out. It's pretty cool. People like it. The one thing that we didn't do was financialize it, turn them into NFTs. So it hasn't worked as well as I was hoping because, turning them into NFTs is going to be a little bit more of a lift and we had more important stuff to do. So eventually, I think it will be turned into this NFT trading game, and I think people will be much more interested because you'll be able to like swap the cards and trade them and upgrade them and all kinds of stuff. But we need more people for that.
Kain, I don't know if you use the term super app, but like it's definitely a term that we've been seeing come up more often. One app in particular called DeFi.app, and then there's Definitive.fi, which Nomadic and I both use to trade on. So anyways, we're thinking about these like super apps, and the space seems like it's getting more crowded. I mean, the names we just mentioned too are like, those are crypto native apps, whereas like then you have like a Robinhood, and of course you think of Coinbase as this sort of super app. So just how are you thinking about differentiating Infinex from these, competitors?
Yeah, I mean, I dealt with this in Synthetix, right? Like we had a lot of Synthetix fast followers. If you go and create a new narrative, and I think to an extent we contributed to this idea of like this new narrative of apps, which isn't really a narrative, right? It's like we probably should have been building apps a while ago, but no one had ever tried it before. We just thought building more and more infra was the right approach. So it makes sense that people have kind of realized this, right? I think there's like this convergent evolution of people going, okay, like the next thing has to be make it accessible to people. So I was always expecting that we would have a lot of people coming after us. I think the thing that we did, and we did a lot of things wrong, but one of the things we did right was to build the right security foundation and build the platform in a way that can scale to billions of dollars of TVL. Binance secures billions of dollars. If you can't hold billions of dollars, you can't compete with Binance, right? So if you go and just build the same trading interface, but people aren't comfortable putting billions of dollars of assets into the thing, then you're probably not taking down Binance, not in the short term, right? And so that's been our view, that we don't want to, we didn't want to cut any corners or make any compromises when it came to security, because obviously I wanted to be able to put my own money in there and feel confident, and that was the threshold, and that took a while for me to be like, sure, I can put 8 figures in here.
Kain, I'm going to make a big assumption here that there's going to be an Infinex token. What would an Infinex token do in this arrangement? What can you share?
Look, people have been asking for an Infinex token since the moment we launched the NFT, right? And there's a reason for that. Like NFTs are bad for a number of reasons. But if we just talk about market structure, NFTs are bad because they're too expensive, typically, for the average person to buy. They're not fungible. It's in the name, right? So, you can't own a fraction of an NFT. Even if you fractionalize them, they are still dumb. So it doesn't really work, right? And if you are someone who's trying to accumulate a large amount of them, the liquidity is terrible. So you end up in this uncanny valley where like the average person can't get them, and then whales can't get them. But what is really good is that it's great for distribution. If you want a bunch of people to have one of a thing and really care about it, it's a really good mechanism, which is why we chose it. But at some point, I think the world is going to force us to accept that like NFTs are not the end state, that we need something that is more liquid and, is available in a lot more places. So at that point, once, the shouting, when token, reaches some crescendo, we'll have to do it. And I think the question of what it will do is still very open. I don't honestly know what it will do, is the honest answer. I think what the patron NFT does now is gate a bunch of things, gates access to features, gates access to things like Echo. So there's a bunch of ancillary benefits, but no direct benefits other than eventually the ability to vote on things. So the cool thing about if we do a token is we get to start from a blank slate.
I was thinking about this, prepping for the interview, and I think the part of Infinex and like the part of Synthetix, the part about you that has always fascinated me is like you are clearly an on-chain maximalist, as in like bringing everything on chain. And this was not a popular view, I think, when you were, definitely like, an early evangelist of this. And I think what's exciting is the infrastructure has finally caught up to allow us to have that vision play out. So, 2025 has started off it started off a little rocky, which is kind of crazy when you have, like, to your point, like Bitcoin was at least above 100,000 for a moment, Ether still being well above 2,000, closer to like 3,000 right now, and hopefully headed towards a new high this year. You know, it's an exciting time to be in crypto. And I think with Infinex, going back to like just the token talk for a moment, like if you can just continue to scale demand for using the app, obviously like the audience, you know, the community will be screaming for that. And it's so much more fun to launch a token into a vibrant, you know, community of users than to force it on folks as like a last ditch sort of like marketing effort. So yeah, I'm excited for Infinex demand to keep scaling. And
I think we're just gonna hold up as long as we can. Is the honest answer? That the longer you don't have a token, the better your life is, basically.
Okay, this is probably a good place then, guys, for us to close out. So I want to remind our listeners they should learn more about Infinex by going to infinex.xyz, follow Infinex_app on X, follow Kain's account, which is KAYNNE, and then all of that's in our show notes so you can easily reference it. Kain, thanks so much for coming on. Great to like catch up. I know we had a previous episode. I still encourage folks to listen in for information on Synthetix V3. I think that was almost like 6 months ago, but again, very excited for what you guys are building, and definitely watch the episode. We'll try to weave in screenshots and videos of some of the features we talked through. So if you're like a podcast listener, good time to like check out the Edge podcast on YouTube. But otherwise, Kain, any final word for us before we go?
I think, I'm just very excited for this year. We have a ton of stuff, and we've got a level of product market fit now in Infinex that is really validating. People want to be able to access things. And the interesting thing is that the people who are most excited are the ones that are a bit burned out from being on chain. They've been on chain for a long time, and they're like, oh, this is such hard work. And they're actually coming back on chain, which for me has been the most validating thing, to see lazy whales go, you know what, I actually will go and do some on-chain transactions again. And I think we're going to see more of that this year.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you're a talented founder or developer, please consider reaching out to our team at fourthrevolution.capital. And to stay up to date with future episodes, plus get expert tips, strategies, and exclusive content, subscribe to our free newsletter at the-edge.xyz.